Right. Yeah, I see Rob here. So Livia has been here for a few days. She's out now.
Oh,
Livia spoke at the conference symposium, of course. She's been helping with the Sloan proposal. Her first comment on reading my document was, "You haven't answered a single one of their questions." She knows how to do it properly, so that's something to work on. I made a page for you guys to comment on. Let me just see if I can find it. I'm pretty sure. Oh yeah, there. Oh, Leon, where are you?
right now I'm in a cafe.
Ah, hang on. You're in a cafe in Hungary.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
I'm about to post a link here. That's I'm looking down, but once I've done that, I do think you need to show us around a little bit. Just move your laptop around. Let's see where you are. Just even look at that roof. That is a beautiful roof. Hello, person.
I
Where's the
like old
coffee?
books on the walls.
Where's the coffee from? Is that next door? Excellent. Yeah, super cool. Yeah, very good. So, uh, yeah, two things to ask you guys. One of them is if you could please click on that link.
Oh.
Because Leon and I had a chat this morning with Livia here, and Leon is looking at how to better communicate what the heck we're talking about. So that meant that we had this Photoshop session. So that's added here. Also, the video on top, it just had text, a title, black, and then white text. It was not very clickable. Now, at least, it's not beautiful, but at least it's clear what's on there. So if you think, tell me if you think this page communicates a bit better or if there's something a bit odd.
Much better. I like the visuals.
Yeah,
That helps, right? Thank you. And under the visual using the Apple space, it does refer to in the mock-up above, you can da da da. And then if you please click on the link that says this is why, that's actually the first question and answer to the first part of the Sloan narrative document, which is the full pitch document. So Livia's really helped clean this up. But my question for you is twofold. I have here the promise of working in extended reality environments, blah, blah, blah. If we can maybe make that better. And also number three, to support rich interactions in XR, it's a bit weak, but we don't have to do that now. But if you have any comments, that would be greatly appreciated.
I'd mention explicit view specs.
Okay. Well, enable rich views and interactions. No, for this, remember this is at very top level. And by the way, guys, the reason it's now referring more to academic stuff, that's simply because that's what this is for Sloan. That's their track, academic communication. I'm not sure if Michael is fully connected, but it looks like he's partly here at least.
Fully here now. Hi.
Hello. So,
Hello.
hey, good to see you. We're just for this pitch we're doing. We're just looking at the link I just reposted. 2 pages there to see if there's anything from you guys that is we can help sell the idea of working in XR. Because for us, it's kind of obvious. The potential is obvious, right? Doesn't mean yeah.
Yeah, I think this is definitely more visual. So even if the people who are handling the grant proposal, if they have no idea what XR is or AR or VR, then at least this is something they can show to other people when they're not able to communicate it themselves.
Yeah, okay, that's good. I guess that's a good one. Hello, Fabienne.
Hello, hello.
We're just spending a bit of time going through an aspect of the pitch to Sloan, and there's 2 aspects. I just posted a link in there. Tried to make the page a bit more visual. I had a meeting with Leon this morning where we mocked up a bit more realistically for vision. And then Livia has been helping, sorry, so many things in my brain, try to sculpt the pitch, which is in the link. This is why. We don't need to go through that now. That would be way too boring for all of us. But I'm wondering if you have any further thoughts on how to bring it alive. When I sent the pitch document to a few people, one of the responses was, really need to you really need to sell working in XR. What the hell? You know, it's become so self-evident to us now. We have to step back and figure out how to resell it. You know what I mean?
I do. So very, very superficially, when I first, the visuals do make sense. So especially the colored one, because we see text in XR like right away, so it's hard to, let's say, ignore it.
What are you talking about? Are you talking about the one with the 2 lampshades?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because otherwise, if we see a future of text in XR, it still like sounds like futuristic, philosophical or something, and this is what it, not what it is, but yeah, it makes it hard to not be prompted, let's say, to imagine. Of course, at the same time, it kind of fixate things, but at least I think it's better if people criticize, because it means they're actually engaged than just like ignore or say no without even trying. So I would say, despite limits, I think it's already a good it's a good thing. And also, from what I can again superficially see, it's a research paper, so we understand, I think, right away it's knowledge work. It's not like, I don't know, about video games or something else. It's like knowledge work in XR. So I think it's a helpful visual. And then we can dig into like the rest, basically.
I'm going to, based on what you said, I'm moving down the video because hang on. Okay, I'm removing. Oh, shit, this is annoying. Hang on. I'm just going to give you a link separately before I remove it from the page. Okay.
Did I see Fabien with a Quest 3?
Oh, oh.
Yes, I was I was going on the side to be incognito or hidden, but yes. And with the hope of doing a little demo here that I think might be helpful for the presentation you just linked. So that's why I'm doing it while listening.
Please tell us more about your experience.
Okay, well, it works. And for some things, there is absolutely, I mean, for me, like very little change, namely, okay, it's more powerful and whatnot. Like the resolution is a bit higher and whatnot, but I'm always with let's say a low, because I do prototyping, I don't need high resolution and high power in most situations. Like if it looks like shit and it's slow, as long as it's usable enough to try the idea, that's good enough. So my let's say threshold is much lower, I guess, than most. But in terms of, let's say, what I feel after countless demonstration, help people to go to try, meaning pass through, so they can still see the quote unquote real world around them. The quality, even compared to the previous model, the more expensive Quest Pro, is quite good. So I think for, let's say, a gentle like introduction to VR, AR, MR, and then eventually VR, I think this device is going to help quite a bit. And then for the other feature, then I'm going to try to show you rather than talk about it, so that it doesn't sound too abstract. I think for this price range, it's a very good device. Sadly for me, since I don't like Meta, so I don't want to promote, let's say, the device itself, but yeah, I think it's worth its costs. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to sell quite a bit, because I think, again, for most people, yeah, I don't know. When I see, for example, there was a golf game, and you can see the Quest 2 versus Quest 3, and the graphics are, let's say, much more impressive. So maybe that's going to make a difference for most people, that it doesn't look too, I don't know, for kids only, I guess. But I'm not sure if in terms of, let's say, actual market penetration or adoption, if let's say the onboarding through color pass-through, I don't know if that's going to be sufficient. Again, I say this naively, I'm not like a market analyst or anything, and I personally don't care too much. I don't want to force XR into people. So if it doesn't drive adoption radically, like, I'm in no rush. I'm okay, let's say, working on the future of XR with you all, and I'm fine if, let's say, wider masses or bigger audience only comes in 5 years or 10 years. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I do think the pass-through makes a huge difference. I think an analogy is headphones. It used to be that if you ordered coffee at a coffee shop with headphones on, like Leon is in right now, people would think you're being very rude and inconsiderate. Now people are used to pass through in these things, so if somebody sees someone with headphones, they don't care. So I think with these devices, if there's an understanding that you are most likely part of the environment, I think it'll be a very positive thing.
And by the way, one very practical detail that I can showcase right now without showcasing it is I can now read the words in the chat, like, why would anyone use XOR, ask the army this in the couple of iteration before this headset. I mean, I could do it, but I would have to explode the font in, like, I don't know, 64 or something. Here I have something relatively small. Also, let's say, reading on my phone itself that actually now is, yeah, I can read even like small notifications. And I think, again, for me who enjoys actually VR, like being cut off from the world, that's a loss. But for people who are, let's say, starting to consider that maybe the medium is interesting, they're still anchored into their reality, including distractions, which again, I'm not a fan of. But in terms of, let's say, adoption for people who might not want to be cut off from the rest of their social interaction or posters on the wall and whatnot, again, it's I don't think it's a detail. I think being able to see the rest of the world, including text, should help, let's say, for mass adoption. But it has benefits and big risk in terms of like not being in the special thing, the special place or moment you want to build. So double-edged sword, but I think in terms of, let's say, wider adoption, just being able to read other content without removing the headset, I think will help quite a bit.
It's interesting to hear what you say about VR versus AR, and I completely agree with you and disagree with you. I know we'll agree on that. Hi, Dini.
Hey, good morning.
At some point, you want to have the world and a few things in VR. At some point, you don't. The fact that we can now toggle is a really big deal. So, Dini, just to update you briefly, Livia has been staying here for a few days. Are you familiar with Livia Polanyi?
No.
She is a linguist, Stanford, NASA, Microsoft, Xerox PARC. So she's helped me go through the narrative document so that I have something nicer to show you tomorrow. I've also shared it with some other people to get their feedback before tomorrow, so I don't waste your time on too much. So
Can you send it to me in advance so I can look at it before we speak tomorrow?
yes, I will send it to you today. No problem at all. The things that are missing is the specific detailing, of course, of the budget, which is the meeting tomorrow, the exact plan, and the exact who does what. But it's starting to get a little bit more solid. Now,
May I recommend one more thing? When we get a nice draft, I'd love to be able to have a session with all of these folks to go through it and let them give some feedback and have their responses, because we're going to have folks reading this at the level in the United States that are going to be not our friends generally. It'd be nice to have as many eyes on it as possible. I try to have a lot of readers on my grants before I submit them.
yeah, no, that's definitely a good idea.
I found a typo already.
On which page? Which
I don't know. It's an AD instead of an AND.
where is that?
Well, I'm not sure. No, I don't have it anymore.
Oh,
So Rob has a copy. You want to go ahead and send it to me then? Have you already distributed it to other people?
No, it's just a. He sent a link, and it's in the.
I'm going to send you the link now.
Yeah.
It's under the actions needed. Third bullet point.
I can't
In
search.
an open and robust manner.
Okay, here you go. I'm sending it again because you entered after, so unfortunately you don't have the thread of the messages. So there are still some things here to be sorted out, but so also, Dini, I know we have to submit the final one in Microsoft Word, but do you have Author installed on your machine?
No, I don't.
Okay, I would really appreciate it if we did that draft in Author, because there's so many things in Word that goes funny. But anyway, so the last link I sent is addressing question 1.
Sorry, but fraud.
But
It's I don't know if it's funny or not, but being able to, or being forced rather, to send in Word rather than in Author is exactly the challenge. I mean, it's not exactly, it's analogous to the challenge of showcasing knowledge work in XR namely that you have a tool and you have to somehow flatten it, or you have to showcase the interest and the challenge to people who are not yet convinced and use, let's say, a set of older medium. So I think it's interesting that, yeah, you will be coerced or forced or to use past medium to argue for the new one, or some of it. It's it's one of, that's a classical problem, not an easy one to, like, I don't have good suggestion for this, but I'm just saying it's, in a way, it's funny.
It is a bit funny. I truly don't mind though, because they have a template. And I'm very much of the mind that a lot of work would be better if it was done with a template, especially school work. You know, if you have a bit of a template to write in, then it's a lot easier for the teacher to read it. So I'm okay with that. Right, but also, Dini, what we're talking about in the group today, I'm going to give you another link. This is how to, outside of the document, and you can see the link there. I'm trying to make it a bit more visual for anyone who clicks on our project page. So with Leon today, we mocked up the first picture on that page, and then with a little explanation below so that people can more easily see what working in XR. Bob Stein came back. I emailed the document to the people who are cited in the document as being advisors. And he was one, and he came back and saying it's not really selling working in XR, which made me furious, but of course he's right. We have to do that better.
I'm sorry, what did he say? Repeat that because you went very quickly. He said
If
what?
you click on the last link, futureoftext.org/XR.
Right.
That is our, of course, our official project page. And on here, I have put improve the visuals. So there's now an image on top, which is an official test picture for Vision. So this was with Livia and Leon this morning.
Mhm.
And the idea is that at least one of the people who looked at this said it doesn't really sell what XR really is. So Leon is also thinking about other ways to make it really clear for those who can be bothered to click on the link rather than only read the document, to see a little bit of video, a little bit of images. And we had an interestingly huge argument with Livia this morning where we were talking about knowledge graphs and the like. And Livia was all, no, academics don't use them. And we were saying, well, it is a very good way of showing use of space. And that's when we kind of reminded ourselves of these things here. What we're seeing in this image is all the diagrams or pictures from the document shown in the center are automatically on the wall on the left. And the reference on the right. This is actually correct stuff. It's from an ACM hypertext paper. And it has a little bit of a knowledge graph to just illustrate things. So along with what you...
What is the...
Sorry, please go ahead.
What's the main purpose then of this figure? Is it selling what working in XR with text could look like, or is it opening the problem space of where we still have challenges?
Yes. And that's the conundrum, because it's yes to both. The toughest part, and I think this really goes to our whole community, the toughest part with Livia today was, on one hand, I wanted to justify supporting our community, supporting the development, to do something so we can test these things. Then on the other side, I'm saying we have to keep dreaming, but by implementing according to what Apple allows us to do, we're kind of really not doing that. We are actually following them. So it made me question, why would they support this rather than have this just be a commercial enterprise? So that's my emotional weight at the moment, and it's quite uncomfortable. But further trying to address your question, the first thing, whatever first image is on here, is to give people an idea that you can have more stuff in XR, and it can pertain to their work. Remember, it has to be about academic communications because this is the academic communications track for Sloan. So we're very happily shoot into one particular type of text. And then our job further down should be to make it bigger. Yeah, Dini, yeah.
One thing I'll say is that there are always partnerships between corporations and academics, research labs and groups, right? And so your question about why would someone like Apple be interested in what we're doing is that we can do some work that they can't.
Oh,
They may not want to partner with us, they may not be happy about us, but they're going to benefit from us.
I meant it a little opposite. What I meant was, why should a research group like Sloan support this work where it could have been done commercially? That's what I meant.
Oh, because they're interested. Sloan, oh my gosh, Sloan especially is interested in open source, open access. They've been fighting software companies for quite a while on getting access to like old Microsoft formats that allow us to go back and read files from 1992, for example. So they're at the forefront of making sure that things are available to the public on a very large scale. And so I see them as the prime organization. This would not go well with, this probably would not be so supported by Mellon. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's really important that you said that. And I'm not going to throw my attention to Michael and Leon again. This is the opposite of me ignoring you, Dini. I'm just going through it this way. So when people come here, this is our front page. And it's just me talking and then the stuff further down, right? But if you look here, we have 3 main sets of links. And the Future Text Initiative is what you looked at now. But we have one for XR experiences. And this is what we have so far. So if either one of you wants to submit something to be here, submit is the wrong word, you know what I mean, to really help the 3D effect, that would be really important. And Dini, explicitly to your point, a problem that I have with the current document is how to highlight the metadata stuff, and you just explained why, so thank you for that. Dini, you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you really highlighted the openness of metadata is important. Thank you. I'll try to put that in better. Yeah, Leon.
Yeah, so I just heard this last reaction from Dini, which made me think that if they are really really serious about open source and having the money end up in public open results, then maybe you want to review the document one more time, because I think the moment you mention the word iOS or Apple, then I think in the same sentence you should immediately make it clear that it's about the that it's about the sort of interface which you're hoping to sort of document or sort of make available to the public, and of which the iOS app happens just to be an app. It's not the product or anything, but that the product is really the research and the open results which will come out of it. Because if I have also worked with grants who are really serious about open source, and yeah, it's really easy for them to sort of skim through the text and see, oh, an iOS app, no, that's not something we want to give money to. So yeah, that's perhaps a bit of a tricky keyword there, this iOS and Apple.
Yeah, no, that's of course important. And let's do that right now. Peter, if you can hold your thought just while we deal with this, please. Thanks. It is in here further down. We should probably make it
The top.
yeah.
They usually read the first paragraph, which is the abstract, right? And then if they're interested, they'll go on. So I've sat on these evaluation committees before for other organizations, right? And when we get these packets, many times they're 60 to 100 pages long. What we look at first is the abstract, and we tick off the boxes of did they answer the things we're interested in the kind of work we want, right? And then we go through the rest of the packet to see if they answered the rest of them in a very concise way. And they have the right personnel to do the project. They thought through it. It's the budget. We usually don't look at the budget. If the budget is on target, we don't nitpick on what they spend the money for. But the key thing is, what are they producing, and is it going to be of value for everybody, right? So along those lines, what we want to say is, while we're going to be producing an open source iOS, a free iOS app, the point of the project is to do blah, 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 which makes this kind of technology and information, this research available to a wide range of people, so we can move in a more open direction.
Yeah, yes. Thank you. Let's continue on that. Peter?
Yeah, what I would like to suggest is that we make it clear that we're going to factor out the software we're developing into two components. And one would be at an abstract level, describing what it is that we want to do in the virtual space. And then separate from that, have the interface to whatever Apple libraries we need in order to have that be manifested on iOS or in VisionOS. So it'll be clear, there'll be one body of software that will be completely cross-platform and independent. That's where our focus is. And then the glue software will be a secondary emphasis, as opposed to, because the first thing is that the whole thing is going to be written using exclusively Apple APIs and will only be good in VisionOS. So even if we make it free, it's still going to wind up being trapped inside of Apple's walled garden. So if we make clear what we're going to create is an abstraction layer between doing serious work in VR in terms of generic affordances and the kinds of capabilities that VR has versus what you need to have that be manifested on Apple's platform. So then most of the code would be completely transportable to any other platform. You basically want to isolate anything that's dependent on Apple AI APIs behind a secondary API that the rest of our software will be talking to. So the interface code itself will be isolated from the main code, which is our primary focus. Otherwise, they'll think that we're working on supporting Apple's domination of the VR market more than the substance of what we really want to explore.
It's really annoying not to have Brundle here at the moment, of course. But
Sorry about that.
oh, you're here.
He's here.
Okay. Brundle, Fabian and Leon have their hands up, but I have to ask you a question. How long have you been here, sneaky man?
Few minutes.
Few minutes. Okay.
I couldn't find my headphones.
So this is a brief summary for you about the Sloan thingy. And so here's our XR page, me talking, and then further down some videos. But if you click on the Future Text Initiative, we now have this to help people understand a little bit about what it might look like. And we also had a discussion earlier whether AR is useful. And of course, AR is useful at some point, but not all points. I think we kind of agree on that. But in terms of easing people in, I'm looking at Fabian's face there. So let me just, for the sake of the open question that is now being discussed, with you being the king of web things, how much of this could be done using WebXR or other web technologies? Do we have to do a native Apple VisionOS thing, or can we completely bypass that, which obviously would be a good thing if we could?
So the WebXR API has the ability to deliver virtual and augmented reality. Vision Pro will have virtual reality provided via WebXR at time of launch. but it is an API that has that ability. So if you were to try to do this on Quest 3 and Quest Pro, you would be able to do it. And the way that you would do it is through web standards.
So in this explicit screenshot mock-up here, having on the left images extracted from this document to go on that wall, is that something that the web would know how to do? Would it have knowledge of your room to be able to do that, as an example?
There are ways that it would be possible for a web experience to do those kinds of things. There are proposed but not sort of ratified standards that have been raised by folks like Meta and Magic Leap and Microsoft for things like scene understanding of various kinds, object detection, or being able to detect and determine surfaces.
Okay.
There are similarities in those APIs to things that Apple provides through ARKit. Those are not plumbed today, but yeah, like that's like long term that one of the general goals, not speaking for Apple, but of WebXR and things like that, is to be able to provide a safe and privacy preserving way of being able to expose all of that data in such a way that authors can make use of it, users can be confident with it, but that data isn't being nefariously deployed. And there's quite a lot of challenge in making sure that those things can be brokered appropriately to satisfy all of those participants without turning it into some kind of panopticon nightmare.
Thank you. I think it's Fabian next, and then Michael. Fabian? Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me all right? Yeah, okay. Thank you. I have some, I don't know, audio issue, but no, I mean that's the whole point of doing WebXR is that like for the anecdote, before buying the Quest 3, a friend came. I should not give detail, but anyway, point is when I actually bought the device, when my code ran on it without any modification. It's not always the case, but that's the whole promise of having a specification that works across devices. Doesn't mean everything is supported. Sometimes it's supported after native. Sometimes it's never supported for technical reasons, safety reason, whatever. But that's the point, and that was a good surprise when I was some unmodified content running on a device that did not even buy at the time. So that and work for, and that's obviously that was the hope for the Vision Pro. And I think to go back to Sloan or proposal of that sort that is supposed to, or where apparently alignment with open source, I mean, it is strategical. If I were to read such proposals and I had some, let's say, insurance that it's no matter how good the device, not locked within one specific ecosystem, yeah, that would be quite reassuring. That's my own motivation from doing WebXR. It's like I've been going from platform to platform, HoloLens 1, HoloLens 2, Quest 1, Quest 2, Quest Pro, Quest 3, like the Magic Leap one, a bunch of those and even more. And it's roughly the same code, again, with some drawbacks, but in terms of, let's say, having some of the core content, and especially regarding, I think, text, because I think if you're running, let's say, yeah, I don't know, even if you're running, let's say, Unreal, or what is usually qualified as the most visually pleasing, there are still ways. So to me, it's a big value proposition, especially when you don't want to be stuck within an ecosystem. So for such proposals, to me, that makes a lot of sense. Of course, I'm biased because I worked in there on that topic, but I work on that topic for this kind of safety, let's say.
So I have to ask you, Fabian, specifically, and Brandel, and Michael, you're coming up in a second. Can these systems then, web-based systems, allow for connection to the user's library of 2,000 PDFs on their local machine easily. Is that kind of connection
Yes.
easily done?
Yes.
Okay.
So for again, for the anecdote, just this afternoon after coffee, I loaded on my desktop like a 5 gigabyte LLM model, and I put an API on it. So 5 gigabyte, I think in terms of data is what more people have than in PDF of their own writings or even whatever they collect. And as long as you have an API that provides it and via the web, yeah, you can manipulate this. So that, to me, that doesn't sound like a problem.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Michael, please. Sorry for the long delay.
No worries. I wanted to comment again on the figure that you showed earlier, when that's on the top of the page now. Because if I read the rest of the site or of the, I don't know, the proposal, but I guess the tone will be similar. It's about dreaming how we will need to adapt text and documents and work with text and documents to set the stage for a new era. We don't know yet how, but some things need to change. And then I look at that teaser figure and it screams Gutenberg in my face, adapting standards that have been established in the 15th century with a 2-column, 2-pager PDF that is too far away to read. And these things don't work well together for me.
Okay. Challenge. If you have a nice visualization to challenge that, that would be very, very useful. The reason behind this current view is, first of all, the one in the center is just really to illustrate it's in the center. The idea, of course, you would place it exactly where you want, but we also have to decide this is just 1 year. It's not that much money. It's one coder working a little bit more than half times. Quite a lot of the other money is for the symposium, academic conferences, that kind of stuff. So this is not like a huge project, even though over 2 years it looks like a decent amount of money. Oh, okay. Right. Yes, I got your message, Leon. So the thing is, first of all, this is within the track of academic communications. So that's important. This is not a general thing with Sloan. This is under that. Secondly, there's so much that can be done with text. And once we set the text completely free, as I think we have to, no question, there's going to be so many variables that come into it. I really want to do that, right? I really love PDF for a specific reason, but that doesn't mean I love it for all reasons. Let's please not get into that really boring argument, right? So all I'm proposing here is a reading environment that is based on PDF, because that is what academic documents are, and make it really pleasant to read that traditional stuff. And of course, augmented PDFs, meaning they have visual meta, meaning that extraction of images and all these things is possible as the very, very beginning, so that people can get used to having their entire library, connections, cool things. When they read something, it is wholly familiar. You know, and just remember, it's just a year. And so it's not going to be a year of coding. There will be a lot of testing, a lot of back and forth. And then my dream would be with you guys to get really pissed off with me and this, and to come up with these provocations, to use a word Peter just emailed, of saying we should do it entirely differently. And then we will do it entirely differently. If this is the future of XR, there's no, pardon my French, there's no fucking point. I completely agree with you. I just think it is, to constrain the beginning, it is a useful first step. Does that at all?
I have no idea about the framing for the proposal or even what Sloan is, so I'm missing some context here, just so the vision is, but I think then we're on the same side here. Yeah.
Yeah, the vision is far beyond. I mean, if you want to talk about vision, Randall's Magic Carpet that's where the vision is, where you have the entire dialogue as a colorful carpet, and we learn how to interact with that. Not just this. Peter, and then Dini, please.
Yeah, maybe instead of focusing on the PDF, we should focus on the LaTeX source code that is being used to generate the PDF.
No.
I had the same thought, to be honest.
No,
It's
we
what
can.
I
Okay,
would
so
have expected here.
look, let me just explain something that Peter knows very well about Visual Meta. Visual Meta can do everything because it is just text, right? So if we, let's say, persuade the ACM to include the entire LaTeX source code for a document in the Visual Meta, amazing, right? So in terms of where we should go next, no question, we should do that. You know, I want as much from the, okay, so Michael, being new here, I just want to make sure we're on the same wavelength. When you work on a manuscript, even in Microsoft Word, you have many interactions available that you do not have when the work is published, no matter how you publish the work. So part of the idea of Visual Meta is simply to take a lot of the structure, knowledge, and depth of the manuscript, such as the headings, the glossary, all that stuff, and packaging it in a way that the reader can read your editorialized author document and then explode it back into manuscript level interaction. So we're on the same page on that in the near future. Right, Dini.
Had to mute. Okay, so and I'll put my hand down. $250,000 is not a lot of money, and it's not a lot of money for development, right? Development funds would be thousands, hundreds of thousands or more. So what we're trying to do, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Frode, is ask the question, what is the future of text? And we're providing a particular vision of it, right? And if you go this direction of our vision, then these are the possibilities. And we're going to give you an example. We're going to give you some examples of what is possible. Then that's what we can do with $250,000. I think if you look at the budget, there's only something like $60,000 set aside for development. That's nothing. So we can't do a lot of stuff with that, but we can give some examples, some possibilities. And if they see that, we might go after larger funds. They do have bigger grants. So I see this as a step in that direction. We provide this step, then we go after more funds for a larger development.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're all on the same page. And I have to say that even though I love the idea of having Reader in Vision OS, even though I actually compiled it, you can see the little circular logo today, and it can do things. I do agree that if we can do this and on web open, we should. Over to you, Randall, on that topic, I'm sure.
Well, so yes, on the function of the web in helping to inform people about expectations and things. Another thing that I was going to bring up is I was talking to some folks. I haven't read the grant proposal because I was camping this weekend. But camping in Silicon Valley obviously entails talking to a lot of older Silicon Valley dads. And so I was sort of laying out the sort of the state of the art in terms of who understands VR. And one of the things that it reminded me of is that the academia is not super well prepared to deal with what VR can do today, because they are sort of in large part seeing it as an extension of how they conducted VR research in the 90s even. And there's been so much water under the bridge, so many, not just things improving, but reprioritizations, reimaginings of what are the important sort of table stakes for an experience to actually be good enough to justify. And so this is the case across the board in all sort of parts of academic VR research, but especially in anything that's web-centric, is that so many people are so enamored of, for example, VRML, VRML. It was actually pronounced VRML by its founders, and I think that's disgusting.
I like it. I like it. It's a rare one.
Yeah, it just there's something about those phonemes together that sounds nice to me.
Randall, can you please excuse me for literally 60 seconds? Because this is where you and Peter really have some interesting points. Just 1 second.
Sure. I can repeat myself when it gets back.
Randall,
yeah,
it's interesting you say that. It's interesting you say that because I just sat into the faculty senate meeting this past week, And the Global Campus, which teaches all the online stuff, is experimenting with VR for teaching. And I said, can you elaborate on that? Can you tell me what you mean? My ears, kind of pricked up, and I said, that sounds interesting. And they kind of fumbled around, and what they're thinking about more is like Zoom on steroids, right? Not really VR. And of course, the question is, how can you teach VR when students need right now headsets? What are we doing with that problem? And so they were just thinking about this as kind of thinking more virtual than virtual reality. So.
Yes. Yeah, and there's merit to it, but I think that there needs to be a holistic examination of all of the components of development. And there are people who are siloed into places where they have understood the transformative impact of having 6 degrees of freedom input controllers or even hand tracking. But the bulk of those things are still, like, many people are still conducting their research with 3 degrees of freedom, or less than 60 frames per second, or considering keyboard input as the primary modality, even with a head-mounted display. And none of those things are acceptable. None of those things are where people have found themselves to have been able to continue their experiences. So being able to understand the popular context to the extent that it is popular. I mean, there are tens of millions of Quest devices out in circulation today, and they really managed to nail a number of sort of capabilities. And without folks playing those things and having those as that level of capability set as the table stakes for what a virtual experience needs to entail, I don't think that the state of the art of their research, the consequences of all of the very earnest and well-meaning interrogation of the medium, I don't think any of those things have much impact.
Let me respond to Brandel quickly, Frode. The thing that we were interested in as faculty is, how do we get students to communicate and compose and think through those technologies, right? So it's one thing to teach through it and say, we're going to hold class in an environment, but students are now, we're imagining students are going to write or compose in a virtual space. What does that look like without a keyboard? And what does that do to the brain as we move away from chirotic writing, right? Which is very different. And those are the kind of questions I think that can come out. So we're going to end, I think, the grant proposal, Frode, with a series of questions that we can show this is where we're headed for a whole lot of different possible experiments in the future. So anyway.
Wonderful. Yeah. I was talking to some folks in our sales and government relations kind of area, mostly government sales rather than relations in a lobbying sense. And I said, something I would love for you to pursue is to make sure that universities are aware of this, but not the computer science departments, but actually the psychology and sociology and I think, to your point, literature and creative media. I think that those are essential partnerships for people to be able to understand the human consequences of this, because the computer scientists will be the path to the door of the sales office anyway. But what I want is for people to talk about, what is it like to have these things? Not just what do you do with them, because what is it like to have? What is it like to be a person in this milieu is an essential question to answer. And I think that's the one that is going to be less obvious that faculty need to be sort of taking on board. Sorry, Frode.
It's a human experience, right? That's the humanities bent of it. What's the human experience with this technology, and how's it going to change the way we think? And we saw that that revolution happen in the late 90s, late 80s, early 90s. Bolter's book, Writing Spaces, first page, the end of print is what he called that period, and we're in the early age of digital. So what does it mean when we're in the early age of virtual?
Exactly. And I hope the lights are not going to go out for Leon, because that would be horrible. So for context, last Tuesday, it was an absolutely awful day for me. We've all had them. For me, it was a question of, I should give up everything I'm doing. Nothing makes sense. One of those awful days. I have to say that this conversation is exactly the opposite. I'm extremely grateful for what's being brought up now, because number one, I think I'm just pasting in some text in the chat. everything, when I talk about doing new stuff with computer stuff, everything comes down to metadata. And by metadata, to remind, and also Michael, all I mean is data that explains what data is, right? That's it. Okay, see you later, Rob. Thank you for being here. And you were the first guy, so that's cool.
Yeah, but thanks a lot, Frode. This is great. As I say, I hope I can
Thanks.
read the document.
Thank you. Right, so here's the thing. I kind of knock up against this thing of the metadata again and again and again. So what I've learned from this
Thanks, Leo,
conversation today is, I'm a Mac guy. I like the elegance. I'm bought into the whole environment. But we have a really good potential win here. I could imagine I develop, well, I have my software, right? And I have in Reader, we have a library now, as I think you guys know, but all the data is kept in the documents. That's the whole point. So if we now develop a Reader web, whatever, that should be able to work with my stuff anyway, because all the data is in the documents. And that makes the system explicitly open. Because the reason I have two different teams on author and reader is if you have one team, they will cheat, not meaning to, but there will be assumptions with how things are dealt with. But when you have two different sets of people, the metadata has to make sense, right? So this is an opportunity for us to do this web-wise, do the learning, keep it open on all levels, like Peter said, and it'll also help the notion of this kind of openness for metadata, right?
Yeah. Something that I think
I'm still buying a
about
Vision,
lot.
though, just so you know, okay, Brandel? If
Oh,
anyone's
good. No, I
buying from
appreciate it.
Apple,
It's-
you haven't lost a sale. Sorry.
No, I'm glad. I'm glad. I should probably also be able to get a staff discount. I'm not sure when those will kick in. Obviously, nobody can buy them at all at this point. But think about that. I'll let everybody know what I understand to be the case. Probably I'd be able to buy up to 5 or so in the first year.
Wow, that's
at
amazing.
some discounted rate. Oh yeah, so interesting that you make a point about teams and cheating and interoperability. One of the things that makes me think about is the level of opinionation that people have about presentation and the differences that come about in what a document is when you are forced to say, okay, this is the data and here is a view of the data versus here is exactly how I want you to render this data, and you don't even need to know to understand what it is in order to be able to do that. The web started with a clear and excited vision of much more of the former, that data existed and then views were sort of composed and constructed as a consequence of that, and various commercial and intellectual forces sort of forced it down a path where everybody was like, this is best viewed as though it is exactly like Internet Explorer, and then the mobile web cropped up, and people started to have to deal with the idea of web pages that were logically 320 pixels wide with the iPhone, and we still deal with that, even though the number of the visual pixels are much larger. That 320p is understood to be that kind of mainstay. But at that same time, people now say, okay, well, I get to do something that's roughly Internet Explorer sized and something that's 320p, and then everybody is just sort of going to render things in exactly the way I want. I think what you're looking for in terms of having the presentation of that data means that you want people to ease off on the presentation for the benefit of being able to sort of provide more of the data for people to compose the views, the view specs kind of concept. And I think that there are some really interesting forces at play when people have things like reader mode in web pages. Chrome doesn't do it, but Safari does it. I think Firefox does as well. And if there were to be, other things that people layer in, translation, live translation, obviously, requires that things be in a certain form. You can't, for the time being, translate the type on images particularly accurately. I don't know that I've seen an attempt, but it would be challenging in comparison to translating the plain text there. And there are definitely ways of really mashing up that stuff. But yeah, I think it's important to bear in mind that there are really fierce political battles in that sort of presentation versus data conflict that you're describing, because metadata means not presenting or not having sort of a fully formed view of exactly what you do with that data. And
Well,
I don't know how you counter that for folks who want to be able to push all of their pixels.
wait, Dini, before you go, 10 seconds. Do you agree with the pivot to web?
Oh God, yes. There's not an app we make anymore that's not web-based.
Okay.
And if we need to do anything at all, we're using React, 3JS, stuff like that. We're trying to avoid. Back in 2009, we began making lots and lots of apps in my program and teaching app development for Apple and for Android. And and we were working with clients like OMSI, the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry, the Oregon Museum of Oregon Territory, and different places like that. And what would happen is that within 6 months, we'd have to update the app for them. And those organizations don't have enough money. The nonprofit history museums don't. And so we finally found that we could produce similar experiences, with 3JS, React, and other top technologies. The lab does not produce anything that's proprietary.
So let's, okay, so I'm going to ask Brantley a question. This is for your benefit, Dini, and mine. So I could, in Reader, Mac or iOS or whatever, put a button that the user clicks when they're in any kind of a headset. That button opens a specific web page that is their home space or whatever. This is after an initial setup. And as long as they're given permission for sharing of their PDFs, they will have their entire library there. So that means that any developer can use this. So now, so that kind of basic, before we do the interactions and the cool stuff, that's relatively normal to set up, right?
To give people a URL that they can do things from.
Dini, if you need to go, please just run. But what I mean is, I'm very much a workflow person. I'm the kind of guy in a supermarket who gets annoyed if it's, if things are stupid. It's a real hang up. So I'm thinking about, I'm a developer, but I'm any developer, not just for Reader. But in Reader, there's an option in settings, let's say, I have a headset. And then they go in and they click in, call whatever kinds of stuff. They go online, they do a setup, these things are connected, and through Dropbox or iCloud or whatever, they have now given permission. So then when they view when they put on their headset in the library, they can click a button that based on that stuff opens Safari or whatever. And then they have this view of that. I see you nodding your head, which is great. So then the second question is, as you know, I don't like the fact that web servers go down. How do we deal with that? Could we even make it a plugin for the web browser? The whole thing?
A couple of things. First, I want to go on record saying I'm a Mac house, and our program uses nothing but Macs, and I'm merely unhappy when I have to use a PC. And I want Apple to get into gaming, so I don't have to use the damn PC anymore. But sincerely, for the apps that we develop that are web-based, we open up the browser, right? So you click on it, open up the browser. It takes you to the site or whatever it is you're doing. And all the experiences happen within the browser in the headset, right? We still have to use proprietary headsets. So we have to think about what it means to produce for an Apple device. So we're going to still have to use Apple products, but the experience itself can move beyond that, I guess is what I'm saying. Which work are you talking about, Peter? I've done a couple. What I'll do is I'll send Proto the list of things we've done, and you can see it.
Oh, that would be really great.
The OMSI exhibition was up for 3 years in the Turbine Room. It was an AR development piece. The MOOC project was up for about 3 or 4 years, but I have archival websites for it all, so you could at least see what we were doing. We do interactive installations using VR is what we do. All right, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you,
Tomorrow, Proto.
Yeah, I'll send today. See you tomorrow. So based on that, guys, on that huge progress and agreement. Oh, I see your hand, Fabian, just real quickly. I'm now adding this sentence so that we can rewrite this stuff to remove the proprietariness. We talk about the workflow we just discussed. And Peter just sent this from Gordon Brander from Subconscious, specifically the title provocation-driven developments. You know, as in all this beautiful history. And I guess part of our question should be, what are the provocations for working in XR? Fabian, please.
So I'll have 3 points, and then I'll have to disappear quickly after. One point will be a very small demo. The very first, let's say, point about provocation, to go back with the article of Gordon, I did not read yet, but I'm subscribing to his Substack, so I will read it soon. Is being on the web doesn't necessarily mean open in some sense that some people understand it. A lot of people, when they hear open, they assume open source. I'm not saying it's right or not right, but that's at least have to be clarified, because you can host software, let's say ChatGPT, that people reach through the web, and it's not open. So it's accessible through a portal that need to be paid for or free of usage, but you cannot access the source of GPT-4, for example, or its data set or whatnot. So I would suggest to be quite careful in terms of what it means openness, and I think the more precise one can be, to be so. I work in open source, I prefer open source, and that's how I build cool prototypes, because I can rely on the work of others. But it just like it's a shaky ground, one has to be careful there. Because if one promises openness and the person who reads the proposal is into open source, they might assume so. And if it's not open source, it's an instant no, rather. So treading carefully there. Now on the technical aspect about sharing documents, I don't like it, but a lot of people, when they share documents online, they use Google Drive. That's an easy way, let's say, to have a set of documents that are shared on the web with a lot of people. I don't like it because it's Google, so in terms of privacy, not my thing. Now, if it's academic documents, privacy is not the same concern, so I would guess it's okay. And also there are, I'm pretty sure I shared with this group, I did some demonstration with WebDAV. The whole point is you can share directory or a set of directory with a set of files in it, like a whole tree, or not your entire hard drive. I mean, you could, but probably not a great idea. But you can basically manipulate documents and the tree, the hierarchy of documents on the web as is. And why do I mention both is because you can have an interface to have either Google Drive or other like a web-based way to manage files online. As an interface, people can just dump their set of academic documents, open source or not, and then manipulate those in XR. So I'm not saying it's trivial or easy, but in terms of having it as a potential constraint,
How's
to
your
me,
charges?
that's an easy one.
Do you want?
Say what?
Okay.
Yeah,
Can I take this? I need to charge. Did you want to put this on?
I think it's not for. I think he stopped
me
the
do it.
camera but not the mic.
So, okay, so inventing stuff, I think, is really hard. And talking to all of you who do that
Just
as
getting
well,
my charger.
I think we can completely, I think we can share that feeling. It's really, really nice to bring something into the world that is novel and new and useful, but it is really hard. And therefore, obviously, to alleviate that a little bit, we need to try to use what exists. I think that is what you're describing, Fabian. I think that is very good. So since you're being such an idiot by doing that, I'd like to ask you to help make it real. You see, that was a trap you walked into, right? I say that with love and respect for anyone who may be confused watching this in the future. I think I really want to work more on visual meta for this. there are some things that are missing. And it turns out that my own library cannot parse the first feature text because we changed Visual Meta a little bit. Wait, come say hi. Come here. What wife would like to say hi?
Hi.
Hello.
Where's the boy? Is he working? Okay. Right. So the one thing that I learned negatively from both Ted Nelson and Doug Engelbart is if it's not part of a workflow, it's pretty much a demo. So if we can, I see here the WebDAV and all of that, if we can work together to make something really, really easy for the basics, just to get the damn PDFs, and if we can document that, put it on the site for anyone to use, that means that we can have really, okay, so for instance, Michael and I superficially totally disagreed earlier on, the presentation of documents. It would be really, really great if we are the ones to provide the infrastructure to make it easy for him to put into code what he thinks rather than what I think, but it's on the same documents. And, we can duke it out, right? That's better than having one developer do it. I hear lots of keywords, so that's what keys happening, so that's good.
Sorry, I thought I was on mute in the chat.
No, not a bad thing. Activity.
No, so I was just sharing some links. Ideally I would point to some videos we had in the past about such demos, but yeah, they're to me again manipulating files and documents and directly via the web is not actually scary. We're not necessarily used to it, but let's say the technology is there, being wrapped within a big brand or not. Not an actual problem in my opinion. At least for a demo, for scale and everything, that's another problem that has to be shown as useful first.
Michael, last time, did I show you what Visual Meta is?
No, but I came across it when getting into the rabbit hole a bit deeper.
Okay, that's very nice, thank you. Because if we do two things as a framework, one, how to get the PDFs available to a web thing, and then two, if we together develop the next layer, because Peter came up with a brilliant idea of having appendices to the appendices, which sounds like a joke, but that's the bit where you have a temporary appendix made when you're in an XR environment that is saying where everything is. So what I think is, obviously, if we get funding for this, we need to decide, where the money should go, what it should support. But if any of you want to help make these things, that would obviously be quite great.
Well, that brings me to a question that I meant to ask in the end of the session. If this bursts the frame of what we actually want to talk about content-wise, then just tell me. But I wondered, how is this lab, as you call it, funded? Is it everybody brings their funding from their institutions? We come together as on a shared table as a platform and collaborate, or is it more institutionalized? You're obviously writing a grant proposal at the moment, so yeah.
It's a lot more casual than that. The way it's been for the last few years has been lots of people chatting, and then we have a symposium coming up, and then sometimes someone managed to either write an article or build something in VR lately. There's been no money exchanged by anyone. Everything has been free, as in free efforts and, no financial reward. I don't make any money of this. symposium cost me £2,500, which was painful, but it is important. This is the first financial thing we've had, and that is, I mean, some of the earlier ones, Windsurf has covered the cost of quite a few symposiums, so I haven't paid £2,500 a year. Then I would have no wife. Anyway, the Sloan proposal is because Windsurf and Ismail Sarageldin, who have been real supporters of this general concept of the future of text, they contacted someone who contacted someone. The Sloan people said, we are interested in potentially supporting work understanding text in a 3D environment. That's how they phrased it. So I believe very, very strongly, I know I'm probably repeating, but I'll do as quick as I can. In the near future, everybody will have a headset, and things will ossify, I think, relatively quickly into VR is this or that. That is why I now really try to get opinions of people, what it might be. Crazy, the crazier the better. But I also believe very strongly that it's very, very hard to imagine without trying. So that's why the implementation is such an important part of the journey. So that's why I'm trying to get some money from the Sloan Foundation to pay for some actual coding. So it's not just what people do when they feel like it. Someone will actually have to do it. And it'll support a wider engagement. Now, we had the Future of Text 2 weeks ago, and one of the people we talked to was from Cairo, and she said, Israel, excuse me, talking of Freudian slip, Egypt is completely fucked at the moment. There's nothing they can do to collaborate. It's a police state, her words. However, she has a contact in Korea. This contact is, let me just see, it's all very, very relevant. Just got an email from her not long ago. She is, okay, it doesn't say in the email, but she's basically a big international collaborator kind of person. So we're hoping to have more collaborations there. That's the kind of things this would help deal with.
Everybody brings their own funding as their job, their association, and just joins in their spare time.
Yeah, I mean, this is nothing other than a 2-hour-a-week chat currently. And over time, some people feel comfortable enough to put their names down for the Future Text Lab, which you can do anytime. You can email me today or in a month or on and off. Some people come in when they can. The guys you see here now, plus Leon, are the core at the moment. And at the moment, I mean, for the last year plus. It's really, really important to have it open because we want amazing people, and amazing people can't always do everything all the time. So that's also why the requirements for contributions to the book are very, very vague. You know, write what you can. You know, it's not very specific. But if we do get this money, then it'll be a little bit easier to help the community cover costs and so on. The thing is, California is absolutely wonderful, and I've spent a lot of time sitting in the incredible weather of California talking about these types of issues: collaboration, communication, text, symbol manipulation. It tends to end up with, if only everyone else was like us. That tends to be the conclusion. You know, they should do it in this particular manner, which is not very useful. And also, it tends to be a lot of people there have tech day jobs. So when it comes to actually coding to test, they get lazy and they don't really do it. So that's another issue. And further, we've had a huge amount of dialogue between, you know, Doug Englebart's work quite well, right, Michael? Okay. So, you know, he had these 2 columns of the human system and tool system. That's part of his whole thing. So a lot of people, you know, if you talk about the tools, other people will say, oh my gosh, it's all about the human, forget about the tools, you know, and it goes back and forth, back and forth. It's been a really unproductive many, many years of having that. So the way this community has gotten now, which I'm very grateful for, is how can these tools be developed to support the human system, which to me seems kind of obvious. So since
things you're surprised about in hindsight, why user-centered design needed to be established first?
Yeah, and here's the irony. I don't really care about the user as a research subject. I care about the user as someone to support. I have a master's degree in HCI, and a lot of it was just user testing, and very little of it was an invention, which I found a bit absurd because you can test anything, but to develop something new that is useful, it's more difficult. So yeah, I'm very concerned about the user, but I think for this stuff, truly we are the users. So we have to be very honest when we use our own systems. I know that I can be bug blind sometimes, use something and ignore it because it's my stuff. And it's like, hang on a second, no, users wouldn't accept that. And of course, once something is in the world, then user software is really important. User testing is important. But anyway, everyone's back. So I'm going to not waffle on that particular subject, except I redesigned the control click menu in Reader, and I'm so excited. That was the big thing this weekend.
I was here. I was just updating my spatial computer. So
Can we see it? You can't show it, can you? Such a monster.
There's a big red circle on your screen.
Really? Not that I can see. Really? Can anyone else see the big red circle?
Top left.
It's an Apple AI overlay to make sure he doesn't show us his headset.
And we're back on. Yeah, this is a very interesting change of direction, and to me, it means two things. Yay, we do the open thing, and B, we can highlight more the importance of metadata. Because it just, without metadata, it's just a demo thing. Michael, what platform are you on? As in Mac or other?
I'm a Windows user. Do I need to add myself here now?
I need to turn off the recording. We can't have someone say Windows user on this.
Ugh.
I sit. My desk has a big beefy VR PC and a Mac on it, and unfortunately, at this moment, in order to do VR, connected VR and high power VR, particularly connecting to things like Blender, you've got to do it through a PC. So no.
Yeah. Oh no, I was just being.
We know.
Yes, just being me. No, the reason I'm also asking, Michael, is the thing is the visual meta thing. Yes, I came up with a word. Yes, I came up with putting it as an appendix, but I think that is so obvious that what I hope is that it's just properly used for whatever. So if you want to experiment with the idea of putting useful stuff at the back of a document, that would be really, really good. Because I think this is an opportunity, literally a once in a generation opportunity to change what openness means. For someone like me, I'm very, very literate in Photoshop and Final Cut and that kind of technology. Hey, go away or be quiet. Stay here and be quiet if you want to. So a lot of the stuff that's in a data fork and all these things, they're not accessible to a lot of people and a lot of systems. And obviously, if they're in that, if the format changes, then they're lost. So if you want to do thinking, if you want to, for instance, put an entire document into Visual Meta as LaTeX, as was said earlier, or whatever, do it. Let's have some fun with it. Even the name Visual Meta is not that important. It's just an idea of not hiding the data, right? Ega, I'm actually having a meeting. If you don't go, I'm going to kiss your head until it falls in two pieces. Right, okay. Young man has disappeared. I'm a bit worried now. Hallelujah, yes.
Sounds a lot of fun and seducing. Priorities are dissertation first at the moment, then distractions and
tell us about your dissertation.
Explorations.
Tell us about your dissertation, please.
It's theoretically founded in the model that I developed, which distinguishes different aspects of fidelity, or let's call it realism, in VR interactions. And I look into that specifically in terms of object manipulation and haptics and embodiment.
Okay.
So I'm doing a dissertation by publication, and well, I had a lot of freedom in my PhD time to explore whatever I find interesting at the moment, which was a lot of fun. It ended up being quite a clutter of topics all over the place now. So the model kind of glues them together, and yeah, is the common red thread.
Yeah, that's really, really cool and useful and interesting. And I have a question for all three of you now. Actually, I completely forgot. One of the things that Livia noticed in the Sloan application that I hadn't really paid attention to is the survey of what is being done in this space. So I'm asking all three of you, because of your different interests, if you have any either products or projects or research that you know about, send me a URL or whatever it is. Just like what is happening in the space. So Michael, if you have anything that you're going to put in your thesis anyway, don't hesitate to send it. It's really good for us to show that we've looked at what's happening in the world before we do this. Thank you for reminding me.
Particular concerning text, or with what focus?
Work in VR.
That's broad.
It is very broad. So what I've written up so far is the area of work in VR is social, meetings. And then there's something that relates to the physical stuff, engineering and architecture. Yeah, those are kind of the givens. And then there's a lot of knowledge graph type things, because it seems to fit using space. And outside of that, I don't have a lot. But if you have, basically, we just need to show that we've been looking around. So I'm just now compiling a few places. But Michael, do you maybe want to take half a session in the near future to present your work to the group?
I guess that would be a good test run for making it a story.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
That's
Sounds
great.
good.
If you can email me a paragraph and suggest a Monday coming up, then I'll have a look at that and we'll talk and see how we can fit it in. Because one of the things we try to do here is to be open, but not too open, have a little bit of a theme for the different sessions.
Yep, sure.
One piece of literature review that would be pretty useful for you to consider or to look into, Rhoda, is SwiftUI on the Apple platform. It was introduced for iPhone, obviously, but it is a fully 3D windowing and sort of constraint-based toolkit for being able to compose sort of scenes and frames and things like that. And it doesn't pertain directly to text, but it does to the arrangement of things next to each other. And to that end, it hopefully will be, the backbone of the way that people arrange spaces in order for them to be flexible and modifiable in the context of rendering them in spatial computing. I don't know that people have noticed that, but they should. Because it is basically the HTML and CSS of native applications there. And obviously, I would love for HTML and CSS to be HTML and CSS of how that happens on the web. But certainly, the folks working on SwiftUI have a reasonable time advantage in having had that and to have made sure that a number of apps are built with it. So yeah.
That's cool. That makes a lot of sense. And Brandel, if I just share the screen here for a second, this is what Reader for Vision looks like. There's not a lot. Obviously, things are packaged away and all kinds of good things. I expect that if
and it shouldn't need to be. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fine. That's fine. But I'm thinking if I'm, for instance, as I said, it's so annoying when iCloud decide to download a thing. So for instance, I just redesigned the control click menu. This is not it. This is the old design. If I wanted to reorder the menu, if this was all written in Swift, is that a coding thing or is that a list of drag and drop thing?
That's I think so the coding and the drag and drop list should be largely interchangeable. Where I think that the source of truth is the code, but that the folks building that Swift UI sort of scene builder or whatever it's called these days have managed to do a pretty good job of making sure that there are always there's a one-for-one sort of correspondence between the ability to write a line or copy paste a line and to have that sort of turn up in a list of things that you can modify the attributes of. I am not a native developer. I've done a very, very small amount in order to prepare myself for understanding some of the things that are around. But from what I gathered, that work has been done, and there's a continued commitment to make sure that sort of philosophical approach remains effective.
I'm wondering if you would not mind at some point going through with me, looking at this code and telling me how to do a few things. We could make that video public, of course, because I think that as long as it's via Git repository, a lot of people who can do a lot in Final Cut and Photoshop and stuff like me should be able to do the basics, like change a background color and stuff. We shouldn't have to pay the programmer to spend $50 to open this up and save and all of that stuff, right?
Yeah, and I think that Swift UI views should permit you to be able to do that by sort of right-clicking or using that panel on the right, kind of thing. I have not used Swift UI enough to know how you sort of segment and cleave the code in a way to be able to do that, but it has been my experience so far that a lot of that stuff is effective, and a lot of the Worldwide Developer Conference videos related to Swift UI, particularly on Vision Pro, should be able to kind of point the way. I haven't watched any of them because I don't have an interest in native for the most part, but it's my understanding that is what it's there to do.
Oh wow, look at this. This is an example. This is
Right.
exciting, isn't it, everyone? Here's the preferences, and these are the things that can be on it. Wow.
Yeah, and you see on the
This
right
is
hand
like
side, there's a
Keynote.
lot
It's
of
like
drop
developing in
downs.
Keynote.
It's a lot like it, yeah. That's
For the
not a
non-Mac
coincidence. Like,
users,
that
okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so if you click on each of those things, then there should be pieces of information, and it it's inevitably, because it's so expressive, there are going to be some weird hidden bits, but there should be the ability to sort of add things and modify things, and yeah. So, and then there will be code that is pure code, doesn't have a view associated with it, but you should be able to, if things are constructed as views, have the ability to look at them and understand what kind of hooks, and if nothing else, have the ability to add the sort of the sections and the segments that then can be hooked into the controllers and things like that.
I see Peter wrote here, as you said 2 billion times, we might need to develop some end-user accessible domain-specific language for use in the project. And it's getting to the point where that's becoming more possible, I think. And one of the things that with Doug Engelbart, I remember when he typed in his commands, I was thinking, if you could save that command, you could run it as a macro. That's a small program, right? But macros have kind of died out in a way, haven't they? They're not used as much as they used to be. But if, for instance, on our call last week, Carl was here and he said, it'd be useful to analyze a document and show only the sentences with a question mark. Right, that was very clever, because then you can see the questions this document raises. It shouldn't be that hard for someone to easily make that a query and that to be reusable. So I think at some point we should definitely look into that, Peter. But not from your level of intellect. That would be way out of people's, at least my ability to deal with. But yeah, I'm very grateful for today. Thank you. You all helped really further what this might be. Thank you for the questions. Michael, now that you understand a little bit more about the casual community we have here, do you have any further questions or comments at this point?
Currently, I need to figure out what that means for me for the future. What makes sense, what I can afford, what my priorities should be. But it gives me a lot to think about.
Yeah, that's a very level-headed way of looking at it. It seems to me that it varies what people do. Some people are completely engaged when we have our meetings. Other people half listen, which is totally fine. You know, doing something else and see if there's something appropriate here. And also, you know, people come and go. I think it's been twice there was nobody, but that's been in over 200 meetings, so that's not exactly a problem. It shouldn't feel that just because you're here for a while, does, you know, suddenly have to be here forever or anything like that. And also, we try, no, well, I try to balance what we talk about so that, you know, we all have a voice, but it is something that I kind of steer like a super tanker towards the text thing. And a few months earlier, it was the super tanker was going towards the symposium. Now the super tanker is going towards the Sloan thing. Because whether or not get the Sloan grant, I think the specific dialogue really helps us note down issues around what we're dealing with and helps us better understand it. So there will be some strong themes, as it were. Yeah, I think that's the best way of saying it.
One question that I wondered content-wise, and maybe this can be just a quick one, if that's an issue that comes up frequently or is really of no interest for everybody else but me. Letters are 2D, which seems like a huge issue that is so not easy to solve. And I don't know what the consequences are here of what I'm asking, but is this something that you discuss frequently?
Yes. We go in and out of that. You know, for us, that's candy. That's the really enjoyable, fun stuff to discuss. But you know, there's all this stuff around it we have to discuss too. The problem I have with text, well, okay, first of all, the reason this community exists is I feel that other media get a lot of money and attention. Text is considered old hat. That's an issue. So that's the reason why. I'm a photographer. Look, here's my camera right next to me. This is my basic human passion. You know, what we're doing here is a passion out of necessity, partly. So my biggest problem with text is intensely only, to put it this way, visual in the foveal space. You have to look at it, right? It is incredibly non-visual as a layout. It's absolutely obscene in a way. So we've looked at many different ways, and Doug Engelbart asked me many years ago to do a color coding of a document test, which worked quite well. So we've looked at doing that. We have some of that in Reader where different things. So to make text more visual and to make text more three-dimensionally useful, yes, we absolutely look at it. We look at the thing that's called billboarding, you know, no matter where you are, the text will face you. We looked at all kinds of things like that, yes. So what I'm hoping will happen now is with the help of you guys, whether or not we get funding, to start with some basic, here are some PDFs, and for now, it's got to be PDF to start with, but of course you can extract text and do things. You know, what do you do? We're trying to make an environment where, you know, you can have a meeting, come in here with us, and you have said, look, I ignored your PDF thing, and I get very annoyed, and you show something completely different. That's amazing. This is supposed to be provocations. It's supposed to change things. But the specifics of text, yeah, absolutely. Sorry, that was supposed to be a yes.
Yeah.
30-minute rant.
Awesome. Very exciting.
Brendel, I'm sure you have more.
I do. One of the challenges with the idea of three-dimensional type is that we actually, you know, we don't see in 3D. We see in stereo 2D. and we have a limited capacity to comprehend volumes and surfaces and things. And you know, the sort of innumerable optical illusions are you know, proof positive of our limited capacity. Not that we can't comprehend 3D, that we can't comprehend volumes or space, but that it's subject to local failures based on the fact that proximally our stimulus is coming that way. And so one of the challenges is like how much of our appreciation of something is 3D versus simply looking at surfaces and then inferring those 3D sort of volumes and areas. I think there's something to be done with both. And so to that end, individual glyphs can often make sense to exist as surfaces, but I also think that we have such a wonderful capacity to understand the depth and depth separation and the spatial sort of arrangement of those things, that while we primarily work with things as 2D surfaces, those 2D surfaces can have spatial significance. So, you know, there might be some sort of volumetric things that happen in the future. We may be able to have 3D glyphs, but for the time being, I think that simply the spatial positioning of 2D glyphs has a lot of benefit for us. And one of the things that I'm really focused on is making sure that even as we have sort of further out visions of exactly what spatial computing and spatial information processing entail, that we have a clear enough path that people don't simply go, this has no relevance for the present generation of people, let alone the next generation of things like, you know, specification standards, APIs that people expect to be able to make use of in an application context. So I'm sympathetic to things like 3D characters and things like that, but based on human perception and sort of the more worldly concerns and priorities that a lot of folks have, I'm also conscious of our sort of obligation to cater to both.
That's a brilliant answer. Thank you.
So, agreeing with all of that, additional comments in closing for today is I had many years ago, my whole thing was called Synapse with a C, you know, cybernetic synapse, blah, blah, blah. And one of the visualizations I had was you reach in and you touch text and it becomes like metal type, visual, you know, 3D visual metal type, and you can twist it to see different things behind it. Right, so you can see it's not like select text, click on a menu, that kind of thing. And one of the things we've been discussing here recently is, you know, like Fabien's magic wrist, where you can put copy paste items. Also, to be able to the way you paste something, the angle you choose to insert it into the page can have meaning, you know, translated. If you read something like Brandel did a VR model of the map in Author. When you touch it, it comes forward a little bit, right? So even the way you interact with the type, even though it is 2D with a 0 depth, or we could make it a slight depth, right now it doesn't matter, is important to the community. It is important to what we're looking at. To be able to take that further will be very important. And it's important to go crazy like that. Brandel has, of course, his magic carpet with lots of text. But at the same time, I do think that a lot of innovation in text will be 2D. And that's fine. It will be both. You know, we shouldn't be tied down to the past, but we shouldn't throw it away either. I mean, it's 5,000 worth of development. So something's good there. The feeling is also, please tell me, guys, if you agree that the act of interactivity is a huge part of this visualization too, but just being able to change things and change it and change it and change it and feel that you're in control going forward, but also going backwards, in control of what you see, but also what you hide. All of these things are really important. And I'm absolutely, literally dying to get a set of actually work documents into this environment, as we've been talking about today, to experiment, because here's the thing about text. Just like knowledge and information, text has to be something specific. Even for a graphic designer, lorem ipsum is a specific thing, right? So if we develop a system that isn't your own text, you know, that you want to work with, you're going to approach it in a completely different and very artificial way. So that's why I
We
don't.
never had text that you cared about that had no meaning. So that's
Yeah, I
what's the interesting being encoded behind it, right? So this only works in real applications.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why Ted Nelson, whom I love and adore, and I've learned so much from his environments. You know, you have the King James Bible, or you have citations and stuff. It's neat to see things moving around, but I'm not a biblical scholar. I don't care about that text. And this was brought home to me many years ago when I made an interactive globe thing for the iPad, where you can do specific thing with a globe. I showed it to my mother-in-law, and she didn't care about the app. She wanted to show me where she grew up. You know, it's just, that's not the point of this, but that is the point. It has to be our data. So once we have our documents, our library in this, we're going to do exactly the kind of crazy stuff you're talking about. We are then allowed to do that. And this is where, coming from an arts background, I hope at least 90% of it will be bullshit. You know, we have to, okay, so I was born an artist, Chelsea School of Art, all of that stuff, while at Syracuse University, where Peter also went. I had a realization that art is a journey for the artist. Art pieces are basically souvenirs of that journey. And if you go too far in whatever you're creating, sculpture, picture, music, whatever, at the point of destroying your art, that's when you've made the art, when you kind of have to go back. And that, to me, became part of why art is not really a viable thing, because an artist can lie. But I think that for our community, we need to keep that ethos, in the sense that we have to be allowed to push into absolute rubbish territory and positively discuss it with each other, without having this fear of it needs to be really good, because once it's really good, it's boring and done. And on that note, thank you all for today.
Have a great week, guys.
Yeah, you too. Good luck with the
Yeah,
house.
you too.
Something very physical in 3D. And I look forward to Monday. Any questions, of course, emails or whatever. See you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.